Hello, this is Big Man Bot. Now, if you like TV and 2D platformers and geckos, then GEX is probably the game for you. Maybe you have to play the game if you want to decide that for yourself, but whatever. Anyway, GEX was a game released on multiple consoles. Because I just told you that. But that's not the reason why it was released on multiple consoles. It was first released on the 3DO back in 1994 in North America, and I'm guessing 1995 everywhere else, but Wikipedia doesn't mention it, so I cannot check. And I'm too lazy to look it up anywhere else. And the PS1 version came out in December of 1995 in North America and 1996 everywhere else. The Sega Saturn version came out in 1996 everywhere. And the PC version came out in 1996 in North America and 1997 in Europe. So, those are the release dates. Anyway, this game received mostly positive reviews, but I still see some average reviews on this game. But I am here to tell you what I think of the game, so that's what we're going to find out today. So, I'm going to play the game. Now, just to let you know, I'm playing the PS1 PSN version on the PS3, but I have also played the Japanese Sega Saturn version, and other than a few color differences and the intro and the ending being in Japanese, it's practically the same game, so that was something I had to get out of the way. The story of the game is that there's a gecko called GEX, who might be the baby in that picture, but I don't know. But then we see the real GEX watching TV, because, you know, he loves watching TV. Then he eats a fly, and it turns out that fly is connected to a place known as the Media Dimension, owned by a guy named Rez. Wait, there are loads of Rezes I'm aware of, but anyway, this Rez wants GEX to be his mascot. So what does he do? Well, after GEX eats the fly thingy, Rez literally puts his hand through GEX's TV, and he briefly steals GEX, and now it's up to GEX to stop Rez and to get out of the Media Dimension. The end. The story is very simple, but it's a 2D platformer, so I don't care, plus I don't care about the story anyway, so let's just get on to the gameplay. Now, GEX is a point A to B platformer. That's all I have to say, there's nothing else to say. That is practically everything I need to tell you about the gameplay. It's a point A to B platformer. Okay, I'm not that mean, so I'll get into the gameplay in a bit more detail. The first thing that I'd like to mention is that the button mapping isn't very good. I mean, X is jump, that's fine, but they make circle the tail whip and square the tongue lash, L1 to run. Now, since I grew up with Crash, I obviously changed the tail whip to square, and I changed the run to R2. It's a good thing that you can change the configuration of the controls, because the main configuration just isn't for me. The controls aren't perfect. GEX feels quite slippery when he moves around, and in order to jump on enemies, you need to hold down in the air to let GEX do this tail bounce thing, which is useful, but it would have been better if you could have just jumped on enemies normally, but it's not really something that heavily bothers me. You can attack people with your tail, but you can't eat them. I mean, GEX isn't Yoshi, were you really expecting him to eat people? And the controls are quite slippery, but they're not too awful. They definitely work, it's just that they're a bit slippery and not perfect, that's all. Basically, in this game, you can move around, because obs. And GEX has his own unique ability. He can climb on walls. Yeah, you heard me right. He can climb on beeping walls. Kinda like he's Spider-Man, but, you know, Spider Gecko. because he's a gecko. Ah, who the beep cares?
Spider-Man, does whatever a spider can. Spins a web any size, catches thieves just like guys. Look out, here comes the Spider-Man.
Okay, he can't swing webs, but whatever, he can still climb on walls. There are a grand total of 6 worlds in the game. There's the cemetery. Ooh, scary. Then there's Toonland, which is very colourful and cartoony, hence the name. Then there's the jungliness of the jungle world. And I don't care that jungliness isn't a real word. I just wanted to say that. And by the way, that definitely was intentional. Then there's the ancient Chinesey place known as Kung Fu-ville. Really creative name, by the way, guys. There's Resopolis, the place where Rez waits for you. And last but not least is the secret world. And this secret world is known as Planet X, and I did not get here on my initial playthrough because, you know, it's just an extra thing. And you get here by completing all of the bonus levels. Gee, it's not like there's another game where, in order to get 100%, you need to beat all of the bonus areas. But, to be fair, GEX did come out, like, 5 days before Donkey Kong Country, so I'll let it pass. In each level, GEX needs to find these remotes. And it's just pointless. Why can't it just be get from point A to B? But nope, you have to find these remotes, and that is kind of annoying. But now I'm going to talk about something a bit more interesting. The power-ups. Now, if you whack them with your tail, you'll get 1 hit point back, which is something. But, and this is a but, if you eat them, they will give you special enhancements. There are the obvious ones, such as health power-ups and extra lives, but there are some more interesting ones. Also, forgot to mention this white ball with an S on it, which basically makes you invincible. First off, there are these orange balls, which not only restore your health, but they give you an extra hit point, which is very helpful. There's this blue orb as well, which makes GEX jump super high. And I guess you could say that GEX is using the art of and then there's this thing, which speeds you up and turns you into... No, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say who it turns you into. That's just evil. No, I'm not saying anything. No, no, no! God, beep it! And now on to the more interesting powers, which I like to call the elemental powers. Now basically these powers give you elemental powers. There's the red one which lets GEX breathe fire. No one can stop me, oh where I got hit. B. Then there's the blue one which gives GEX some icy powers. He can basically freeze enemies with this. It's pretty interesting. And last but not least is, oh wait, I need to give you solid proof that this freezes enemies. Okay, then I'll give you that solid proof. duplicate, then you're not getting any solid proof. Beep you. And last but not least are these yellow ones, which lets you electrocute everyone. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. The level designs are pretty good. I do enjoy quite a lot of the levels. My favourite world, I don't know exactly what it is, but it might either be the jungle world or the Chinese Kung Fu world. Both worlds are quite nice to look at and they're fun to play through. They're both very challenging and they're enjoyable. Not that the other worlds are bad, it's just that these two worlds are the best. And in case you didn't notice, all of these levels are based on TV genres, so yeah. The bosses in this game aren't really worth mentioning. I mean, they're not terrible, they're just not amazing either, by the way. Res is the only part in the game where the camera actually zooms out, which is actually quite helpful, considering that, you know, the camera is quite close in to GEX. The graphics in this game are pretty nice. Now, there may not be that much variety with every different level in each world. Every world still looks very different from each other, and they're all very distinct. The game has some very nice hand-drawn visuals, even though GEX is a pre-rendered sprite, kinda like Donkey Kong Country. And yeah, the game has some nice graphics. I didn't really notice any frame rate issues, and yeah, the game's nice to look at, and yeah, that's all I have to say about the graphics. They're good for 1994. The end. The music in the game is also pretty good. Now, surely, each level in every world has the same song except for the bosses, which each have their own individual themes, even from the main world. The music is still great, even though there's not a ton of it. I mean, it's catchy, it can be memorable, and overall it's pretty good, especially this graveyard theme. I might recommend you look on YouTube if you want to listen to it. And as for the sound effects, they're quite nice to listen to. They aren't amazing by any chance, but they are quite nice to listen to, and they definitely don't make you want to turn the sound effects off. And then we come to the voice acting. This is going to be quite interesting. As you may have noticed, while we play the game, GEX sometimes says some random quotes. That is because this game has voice acting. I mean, obviously the game has voice acting. GEX is voiced by a guy named Dana Gould. Well, in the sequels it was changed in Europe, but this is the first game where he voiced GEX in every version, so please shush. And basically, my thoughts on him is that his voice role isn't terrible at all. I kinda like it. It's not amazing, but I never got annoyed by it, and it's certainly not terrible to listen to GEX talk. And even if you do find GEX annoying, you can just turn his voice off at the beginning of the game. So, yeah, if you don't like GEX's voice and you just want him to shut up, then just turn his voice off at the beginning of the game. It's simple as that. And he just shouts out pop culture references, and while I don't get a lot of them, this was like 1994, so I can't really expect too much. Are there any bad things about the game? Yes. First, like I mentioned before, the controls are quite slippery and may take some time to get used to, and the wall climbing can also get a bit awkward sometimes, and trust me, that does get annoying when it becomes awkward. And while I do like the level design, sometimes they can get annoying and kind of cheap at times. And basically, I don't really have much more wrong with this game. I mean, the inclusion of remotes in the levels is completely pointless, and, well, the bosses kinda suck. But I don't really have much more wrong with this game. It's overall a pretty good game. But the game does have some screen crunching-ish errors, which will, you know, lead you to some cheap deaths. Speaking of errors, maybe I meant issues, but there is one thing that's really annoying about the game, and that is the password system. Now this is why it annoys me. That basically means that your memory cards don't do beep. Seriously, if Rayman can do it, then so can you, GEX. And these tapes only appear once in every world, and you may get a password after the boss, but that's still not nice enough. The game should have just had a save feature. But outside the 3DO version, there was no save feature. Absolutely none. But I will mention that the password system has 8 characters, and it's basically half of the alphabet. Roughly. Maybe it's a tiny bit more than that, but it's not the whole alphabet, I can tell you that much. Also, no continue, so once you get game over, it's back to the title screen. You just gotta hope that you know the nearest password to the level you were on, because if you don't, then you're beat. You've gotta start from the beginning, all over the end. Or since it's 2014, you can just go on the internet and just look up the level you were on, so... Yay for the internet! As for the rest of the game, it's pretty good. The graphics are nice, the music's nice, the controls, while not perfect, still work well enough, and yeah, that's practically everything I have to say about this game. It is pretty difficult, I'll tell you that much, but I never got a game over during my playthrough, and I managed to beat it any percent in around 3 hours. And if you're really good, you can actually beat the game 100% in just over an hour, but that's if you're really good. I didn't bother getting 100%, I just got any percent in the second version, and that was it. And the ending's not really worth it, unfortunately, and if you beat the game 100%, it's just extended with, like, concept art. But the game is still fun, and I definitely recommend you pick it up if you want to. It's definitely fun, I can tell you that much, and those are the climbing problems when you put in those tiny little areas where GEX just stops climbing. That is just annoying, but the game's still fun, and GEX never gets annoying. I didn't find him funny, but I definitely didn't find him super annoying, so I can tell you that much. Overall, the original GEX is pretty good. Now, it's not perfect. The controls are slippery, the passwords are annoying, and the bosses kind of suck, and the game is pretty hard, but the game's still fun. It's not too hard. There are quite a few extra lives in the game. The graphics are nice, the music's nice, and overall the game is pretty fun. What should I give this game with my new rating system? I wonder what I'll give it. I won't give it something too high, but I want to give it an average rating either. I'll give it a smart person, or a smart human being, meaning it's pretty good and I like it. Now, the game's not perfect by any means. I mean, it's got too many flaws to get something like a Jesus rating, but this game is still quite fun. And it even spawned 2 sequels, in fact. That's right, count them. 1, 2. Pretend I'm holding GEX 3. Oh, you're not pretending, I hate you all. You're so mean. But anyway, that was my review on GEX 1. Thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please comment, rate, and subscribe. This is Big Bang Bot signing out, and I wonder, how many of you actually like geckos? Maybe you could put them onto your TV, and then you can call them GEX if you want. It's just an idea. But anyway, goodbye! As for my next review, all I'm going to say is that it's going to be quite smashing. That was awful, but whatever.